That's exciting. This will be much more visual and exciting than our usual interviews. Pat will love that. So how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Considering the fact that I moved here from the middle of the desert, and I have some pretty, I guess you could call it sunlight withdrawal, vitamin D withdrawal.
Okay.
But it is Paris, so, there's that. I can live with it.
Yeah. Are you living there, or are you visiting, or?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if we're recording it, but
We are recording, so yeah. I guess only say I don't know what he uses. He kind of does that stuff, but.
all right. Well, then I will go into the explanation of why I'm living here because it really is tied into the ULA. While I was getting ready to go today, I realized that because the reason I'm living here is because I got married to a French person, and the French person happens to be the ex-husband of my best friend. Unfortunately, it's both husband and ex-best friend, not because anyone got into an argument, because she died tragically young. I don't know how much she was involved with the ULA, but I know she was involved with Bill Blackolive. But
Oh, you're talking about Lisa Fuller from Akron.
Yep.
Wow, that's crazy. I had no idea. That's interesting. Is it Chris? Was that his name, the husband?
Yeah, it's Chris.
Okay. I remember that from reading Lisa's stuff.
Yeah. I've known.
We lost the signal for a second. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'll sit tight. Just
We
for.
both miss Lisa. At our age, that's enough to form a marriage.
Wow. So, did you know Lisa from Zines, like when she was doing Bikini Girl? And
Sorry, what's that?
did you know Lisa from the zine scene when she was doing like Bikini Girl and stuff?
Yeah, my God, I knew her before. Obviously, I knew her before I met Chris because I met her. Actually, I met her through another zine. I met her through. Do you remember Temp Slave?
Yes, Jeff Kelly, right?
Right. Jeff Kelly introduced me to Lisa because those two were pen pals, and he got to know her and he got to know me, and he said, "Hey, you two should talk." And like even just via like writing each other letters, like it was the 19th century or the 20th century, which it actually was. We got to be really good friends really fast, and she invited me to come visit them here. And so for the next 20 years, every year or every other year, I came and visited them here, and we were kind of like the Three Musketeers. And then the day I turned 40, which, I was already, like, having a woe is me, drinking red wine at 10 a.m. party to begin with. But I rolled out of bed. I rolled out of bed on my 40th birthday, and the first thing that I found was everything on the internet telling me that Charlie Hebdo in Paris had been shot up. The magazine offices that were shot up in my
I remember that,
attack.
yes.
Yep, that was January 7th. That should live in infamy just because it ruined my birthday. But, the universe wasn't done yet after I sort of like got done reeling from that. And of course I was worried about Chris and Lisa. A couple hours later, Chris calls me up. He says, those words nobody likes to hear. I hate to tell you this, but
Oh, geez.
Lisa is not here anymore. It had nothing to do with the Bataclan. She was sick, but she was, I guess, sicker than anyone thought, and then she was no more.
Yeah, that was sad. We included her along with you in the Slush Pile anthology. She had agreed to be in it before, and then she was one of the ones that passed on by the time it published. So I had known her from writing for Tab, which was an Akron zine, and she would write for them. She was already, I think, in Paris. She might have started when she was in New York. And so I had known her, and then knew her later from ULA.
Sorry, you're kind of cutting out. What was the last thing?
I was just, I remember Lisa, I never met her in person, but we used to write for the same zine in Akron called Tab. And so I knew her. she would do recipes and fun stuff like that, and tell us about her expatriate life when she moved to Paris and France. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's wonderful. Was there like sort of a Lisa Fuller fan club in Ohio? Was she kind of like being from Wisconsin? We kind of we had a local sort of cult of people like Shimon and Lindemann, the photographers, and Boris the Sprinkler, the band, and Ted 96 before the guy overdosed and died three weeks after he was sleeping on my floor. Jesus Christ. I know a lot of dead people. It's horrible.
Yeah, I think she came up like in the punk rock days of the 70s and did zines, and she moved to New York, and then been involved, I guess, through the 80s and 90s. A tab would have popped up like in the early 90s, and she was already, I think, in New York at that point, if not Paris already, or France already.
Yeah, she and Chris lived in New York for a while before they moved over here. He was born here, and it's just, he kind of likes being where he was born, which I can understand. If I had been born any place where there were any kind of jobs or trains that didn't just blast through the town, I might want to stay there too.
Sounds good. Okay, well, I guess we'll get to that's fascinating. I had no idea. That's another great ULA connection for sure. So you're in Wisconsin, right? How'd you get into zines? You were doing Bottle Fed and some other zines, or did you start off writing for Temp Slave, or did you read in Fact Sheet 5? How'd you get started in zines?
I don't even remember. I just stumbled into some publications in, what was the name of the bookstore? It was on State Street. It was, the cool bookstore, and I just stumbled onto all of these cool publications. Like I read Jim Goad's Answer Me when I was 19 on 5 hits of acid. I also, that same night, I must have been some good acid, because the same night I still had enough gas to read everything Edward Gorey ever did.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the sun's up, and I'm like, maybe I need to rethink my life choices, not sleeping. But, there's worse things you can do on drugs than reading.
Right, for sure. Yeah, stay out of trouble, right?
Yeah, and then I found Temp Slave, and then I found out that, Capo was, lived next door to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, not literally next door, but in the same town.
Right, you're Madison, Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, he lived in Madison. He got like a nice job in a factory, which was really hard to get at the time. I don't even know how he swung that. But if you ever wonder why Jeff Kelly moved to a godforsaken place like Madison, Wisconsin, that is why he got a good job.
Okay.
As far as I know, he's still there.
Yeah, he did. There was an interview on some website where they interview old-time zinesters, and there was an interview sort of caught up on his life after post-Temp Slave. But that was a great zine. I had the book as well, where they collected Temp Slave. Okay, so you're doing zines, and you're publishing your own zines, and then how did you get involved with the ULA? Were you trading zines with Carl Wenckless or Kostecki, or all of them, or one of them? Or?
Wenckless and Kostecki came like a couple of years later. I started Bottle Fed, I think soon after I stumbled on zines. I was like, oh, anyone can do this? Well, I'll do this. I had just, when I first moved to Madison, I had a scholarship at the UW, and I started working at the student newspaper there. And unfortunately, it was sort of run by a bunch of communist weirdos. And then the communist weirdo cabal got in a fight with the capitalist weirdo cabal, and I got ejected from the paper. So, and also, I quit school for various reasons. That's a long story. Mostly because I figured, and I think I was correct, I figured I could do better in my career if I didn't waste time sitting there in class. So I just went out and worked. That worked out well sometimes and sometimes not, but, after I found out that newspaper people are kind of weirdos, zines were a place where I could go and write and just have everything my own way and not have to worry about office politics. To no one's surprise, after I was brutally sexually assaulted a couple of years back,
Ooh.
I wound up in the hospital, and they found out that I've always been autistic. I've covered it really well.
Yeah,
because, Wisconsinites are tough.
I never would have guessed that.
What's that?
I never would have guessed that because many autistic people I've met are not super social, and you always were pleasant to have conversations with and interact with. So I would never have guessed that.
Yeah, well, I was usually drunk, which made it a lot more feasible. now that I'm just too old to drink. I mean, having drunk the way I did, I'm too old to drink like that, and I will always drink like that, so I just can't drink. And now that I can't drink, I just like, oh wow, I really am antisocial, aren't I? I hate people. I'm working on a work of fiction right now, and I'm releasing it serially on Substack.
Oh, cool!
And thank you. You can. It's called Nuisance Online Distributor. It's
Okay.
named after the Japanese charges. I think it's a bad translation of the Japanese charges that were filed against that American guy, obnoxious little shit. Of course, he's like Gen Z. He went over to Japan and started following people around on public transit and taunting them about the atomic bomb.
Jeez.
Yeah, thanks for making us all look like assholes.
Yeah.
So when he was arrested, I think one of the charges they wrote on his paperwork was nuisance online distributor. I was like, okay, that's the name for the new book.
Yeah, that's a great name.
Yeah. So I'm finally releasing my sort of science fiction space opera that I started writing about the time of the ULA, and I've been kind of chipping away at it over the years. I'm finally releasing that on Nuisance Online Distributor, or Online Nuisance Distributor, I can't remember. I just started it 10 days ago. But I'm publishing that chapter by chapter, and I'm also publishing a new novel, just completely new. I'm making it up as I go along. And that is about that time when I started writing Bottle Fed, and when I met Jeff Kelly, and when I met Lisa. So I'm kind of back around to all this, and in my memories, I'm going through my memories, because it is fictionalized, but a lot of it is based on shit that actually happened. I meant for it to be an autobiography, but then I realized I don't remember half of this shit. Like, I have to make up so much stuff. I just had to go along and make it a novel. So...
Sounds cool. I'm gonna check it out.
But thank you. I really hope you will, and spread the word, because I actually, it takes a lot for somebody who's very perfectionistic to go, hey, I wrote something good, which is a huge disadvantage right now, because people who write total trash are like, I'm the best writer in the world! And, if you actually are a perfectionist, it's hard to compete with that level of hucksterism.
Yes.
But I can definitely say I'm proud of these two things that I'm doing right now. And having to go through all these memories for Brett and Leslie, that's the newer book. I'm remembering, just how many assholes I surrounded myself with, and how much I had to drink to put up with them. Were we really having fun, or were we just self-medicating because we didn't know what the fuck else to do?
Could be.
So it kind of looks like nostalgia, but it's not. It's like anti-nostalgia. But, so when I was attacked a few years ago, I just completely broke down and wound up in the hospital. Again, I mean, if I seem pleasant on the outside, I've been in the mental hospital several times, after the ULA, after a bunch of other stuff, just because pretending to be a normal person and just having to be social to do jobs and just having people think I'm weird no matter how hard I try, eventually you start to break down. And then when this person attacked me from behind in my own house. And then I almost died of typhus because I escaped that to California because the cops didn't really seem to think, oh, I was going to show you Paris. Everyone's had enough of my dumb head. Here's the city.
Okay, thanks.
There we go.
This is a much cooler visual than we usually get. Thank you. I love this.
Yeah, this is Chinatown, actually.
I didn't even know they had a Chinatown in Paris. That's cool.
Yeah, it's in the 13th arrondissement. It's a real nice neighborhood. I live just outside the city. we've just walked from near my house. Oh God, the stalkers are going to find me. Never mind. We are nowhere near my house.
Yeah. Do you ever? James Nolan was another ULA member who moved from America to France. I think he was in Lyon. I don't know where he is now, but I think.
Oh, I love Lyon. That's such a beautiful city.
Yeah, you guys could have like a ULA France chapter or something going there. Now 2 people are there, and Lisa before as well. That's it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So,
yeah, goddamn, I miss Lisa.
the ULA, so you're trading zines. How did you get roped into the whole ULA thing? Because you were one of the founding members with the Hoboken meeting and everything.
Yeah, that was right around the time I got hired for, a real job. It was one of those things where they used a test to hire people, and of course I passed the test. If it had been an interview, forget about it. But right before then, I think, I joined the ULA because I was at a point in my life where I knew I needed to get my shit together. I was about 24, and I was just writing zines, and I had no idea how to market them. I just sent them to reviewers, and they wound up in a stack of 800 other zines. And I was kind of curious. I wasn't so much roped in as I was kind of curious.
So did you were still in Madison, so you drove to or got to Hoboken, and then had you met any of the other members in person before, or these are basically strangers? Because Joe Smith, we just had the interview with him, and he talks about how he's driving there and he's thinking he's half crazy, but he said it was a great experience, but he had, he's driving. I think he was driving up from Maryland at that point.
I don't think I knew anyone except the people who wound up attached to it. I guess, I'm not sure how Lisa wound up attached to it, but the only people I knew prior were Lisa and Carl. No, not Carl. Lisa and Jeff Kelly. And then Carl found me. I think the first person I met cold from the ULA was Carl.
This was his dream to kind of take on the corporate publishing and rejuvenate American literature from the zine scene. So what was it like, that first meeting?
Well, I was kind of distracted by the fact that I was still living in Madison at the time, and I had to go to Chicago to meet him for some reason. I can't remember why. I think maybe being from the East Coast, that's as far into the Midwest as he would deign to go.
Well, he's a Detroiter, so he is a Midwesterner.
Yeah. Yeah, Carl always had that curious mix of snobbery, but then panicking if anyone else breathed the word of snobbery towards him.
Yeah, definitely some forceful personalities in that the founding members.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I ended up leaving was because Carl just was focused so much on the showmanship and the getting attention that he didn't really focus on writing anything, which I thought was kind of the point. He got mad at me when I took time out to actually go write instead of, spending all of my money to go to New York and bother people. I was like, and all right, that's enough of that.
Now, we're from the Hoboken and the initial protests, and then I met you the first time at the Amato Opera House reading, which would have been, I guess, the March of, I want to say 2000? 2001. I think it was March 2001. Yeah. Were you in Madison and you just came back up for the opera reading? Or there was also some infamous press conference with George Plimpton. I think you were at that as well. Was that CBGB's?
That was in New York, and Carl was furious with me because I got food poisoning and started vomiting. Ooh. And he thought I had like stage nerves or something. And he was like, "How dare you be such a prima donna?" And I'm like, "Dude, you picked the restaurant." I had some bad tuna or something. I mean, how do you get bad tuna that close to the ocean? I have no idea.
Right, New York.
I actually, to even get through that event, I had to take a fistful of speed that Lisa had given me the last time I was there.
Wow.
I was so sick. And she had given me those. She was like, anytime you're in an emergency and you need to, like, get something done, just rely on these handy little pills. I had no idea what was in them, but, as I'm puking my guts out, and Carl's like, we're going to be on stage in half an hour, you prima donna. I heard Lisa's voice in my head going, take out these pills, they'll get you through anything. like she was one of those people in the huts that help you in that Zelda video game.
Right.
Take this potion, it'll get you through any boss.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have known that. Yeah, I remember the motto. You did a great performance, and wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, I was so sick, and I had just taken a fistful of Lisa Fleur's medical grade speed.
Wow. So then, after that, I think you left the ULA, probably for what you mentioned. You wanted to focus on writing. The next thing I remember encountering you at is the Colin Carter benefit in Chicago, maybe a couple years later in 2003. Now, you weren't a member of the ULA again, but do you remember that event?
I was shit-faced, but I do remember the beginning of it. Yeah, I think I told Carl to go pound sand, but I felt bad for Colin, so I showed up.
Yeah, it wasn't an official ULA event, but I think I performed there. You were there. Carl was there. There might have been a couple others as well, and then there were some other zine folks who, where they were affiliated with the ULA or not. He had been hit by a bicycle, or he was riding a bicycle. He had been hit by a car, and he needed money for his hospital bills, if I remember correctly.
Oh God, he always had some kind of self-inflicted injury. I remember when we did the Plimpton event in New York. Carl had I don't know if it was broken or just screwed up, but he had hurt his foot because he was a manager where he worked, and he had gotten mad at his peon subordinates and wanted to threaten them, so he was kicking things, and he hurt his foot, and he was whining about breaking his foot. And I'm like, how did you feel sorry for you, dude?
Yeah, I meant Colin Carter was the benefit guy, had been in a bicycle accident. Yeah, I don't think Wencliffe was.
I thought you meant it was like double.
No,
okay.
Not that I know. I love the story about Carl and kicking something, though.
Yeah. No, I thought you meant Carl had injured himself before Colin's event, where he had also injured himself. I'm sorry.
Yes, I don't remember. It was Colin. I don't think Colin was even at the event. I think he was still too. I don't know if he was in the hospital or whatever. I don't remember if he was. I don't remember meeting him. I think some of his family members or his wife was there or something. But was that the last thing you kind of did that was ULA affiliated? The 2003 event, or?
Yeah, I think that was about it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened after that, because I was busy watching the newspaper industry fall apart and wondering what the hell to do with myself next.
Yeah, you were at the Chicago Reader, is that right? You were working there?
Yes. I got a job there in 2000, and kind of worked my way up, and then by 2005 I left to actually go get a degree in classical letters, because
wow.
I could see that the news. Yeah, that was fun, very interesting, and actually it gets you more jobs than you would think.
Yeah, that's good. I read your novel about the guy in grad school, kind of the bitter rock fan in grad school. I was wondering if you had been ended up there, because it was very true to that experience.
Yeah, it wasn't about me, because as you can see, I haven't had any experiences that that guy had. Thank God.
Thank goodness.
But
Yes.
but I was very, very familiar with the setting.
So you've written quite a few things since the ULA. How do you feel like being in the zine scene or being in the ULA helped influence your writing?
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess I've come full circle now, because Substack is more or less the 2023 version of a zine. It's just you can get better circulation without having to spend $500 on a print job.
Yes. Yeah, Pat has a Substack going too. I experimented with it briefly, but it's hard enough to keep up with the blog. So I quickly bowed out of Substack, but it's pretty cool. I like I'm subscribed to a few of them, and you get the emails when something comes out. That's a great medium.
Yeah, and it's got its own sort of social media. It's called Notes. It's got its own sort of social media system built in, and it's a social media system that selects for people who, at least can write something that superficially resembles a magazine article, right? We're not in the land of monosyllabic Twitter or, not even a syllable TikTok.
Right. Yeah, it's been fascinating. One of the themes that keeps coming up in ULA interviews is just it was one of the last kind of literary movements before the internet existed, of course, but before it became huge and started to dominate everyday life in the way it has.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because, computers cost a year's salary back in the 90s, the early internet was sort of the purview of rich nerds. So the people who were sort of grandfathered into getting famous on the internet were rich nerds. So that's kind of the tone that the whole thing took on. And then that sort of wove itself in with the lowest common denominator thing that happens when you give everyone who's sentient enough to push a button a vote. And so it's kind of a perfect storm of horribleness. But
yeah. It's one of the best descriptions I've heard of the history of the internet in a nutshell. Yeah. But
at least, it's not exactly an equivalent to the prior mass media because there was a different form of gatekeeping back then. But I think Substack and/or things like it. Oh God, there's a human blockade here. God help me. Pardon. Vous n'êtes pas les seuls humains sur la terre.
Merci.
Kids these days. What was I saying?
About the internet.
Oh yeah. I think as horrible as it is, there's at least decent shot that Substack and/or things like it are going to be the rough equivalent of zines, hopefully better, because there were some terrible zines back then. In fact, I'd say the vast majority of zines were god-awful.
Yeah, it's Ann Sterzinger, the science fiction writer, said 90% of everything's terrible, but the other 10%, that's what's worth it. Yeah, that definitely seems to apply to zines.
Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't always the best ones that always floated to the top. I've always, you might have known this prior. I've always had a massive hate boner for Comet Bus.
No, I did not.
Just boring. Like, how many dicks did that guy suck? Not in a homophobic way, just sort of a, who are you to be that guy? Anyway.
Right. That may be still the biggest zine if people think of zines.
Lord, no wonder people think zines are terrible. But I mean that's kind of the reason people think modern fiction is terrible, because not only is 99% of it garbage, the 1% of it that becomes well known is not the good 1% for some reason.
Yeah.
There are exceptions.
Yeah, what do you think of? The ULA had some effects, but did not change the course of corporate literature for sure. What do you think of the state of modern American literature and zines? And I guess the legacy of the ULA, even maybe.
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to poll the public and see if anyone's ever heard of us.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the reasons like Pat is doing the documentary, because it seems like it has been forgotten. And we did see like a couple places, oddly, the guy who wrote Fight Club just randomly a couple of years ago was complaining about the ULA. His agent wanted to give everybody book deals, but we refused because we wanted too much money. Like complete fiction, because I think Carl Winkler said, you could have had us for $5, not $500, So it's weird. Sometimes stuff comes back, but it's just oddball, weird kind of they're complaining that we were complaining about Rick Moody getting grants he shouldn't have or something.
Sorry, I'm not sure where the bad connection is. I missed that last part.
Oh, just saying that usually when ULA comes up as, oh, it's somebody still mad we were complaining about Rick Moody getting a grant 20 years ago or something. How dare we, challenge things?
Yeah, well, why would you be mad that someone challenged that? I mean, he didn't deserve it. Let's face it. He didn't. And he didn't need it. He didn't need it. He didn't deserve it.
Right.
Where's the controversy? I don't see it. And that was one thing that Carl was right about. I mean, he wasn't right about his whole, let's not write and just make noise thing, but he was definitely right about that guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of corruption in the literary world, probably still today, but definitely back then with people giving each other grants and prizes. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and
yeah, and that's why no one cares about books anymore, and it's their own fault, and they're the people who are out there whining, how come I'm not as famous as Eminem? Well, because Eminem tried to do good stuff instead of just sucking dicks. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, it's definitely not central to the culture for sure in a way that things such as hip hop and sports are. That's for sure, and there's probably costs and effects to the society as a result.
And it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, there are really good writers in France that are popular. Why? Because they are a more literary culture, but why are they a more literary culture? Because they don't shove people who are awful to the top and then tell the public, these are our best writers. You know, they actually make people compete. And not just, as we've seen with the internet, having people compete in the lowest common denominator of letting every monkey on the planet click. That doesn't really work either. But having people compete via writing is the most solitary thing you can possibly do. And the idea that people are competing for slots in the publishing industry by being social is so backwards, I don't even know where to begin.
Right.
In France, probably their most famous and controversial fiction writer right now is Michel Houellebecq, whose name I'm still a little embarrassed to pronounce, even after living here for a year and a half and being fluent. It's even difficult for French people. But anyway, he is the least social creature on earth. He would have never made it past his first novel in the United States. He would have been a total failure. He wouldn't have been able to handle it, and he would have probably killed himself. But here, his gifts were put to excellent use.
That's good. And here you gotta be social networking. You gotta go do a book tour. Yeah, it's almost like being a performer rather than a writer. Yeah, and then you throw on the internet, and people who are, spend way more time on social media than actually writing are the people whose books sell the most because, they guilt trip and cajole all their friends into buying them. Right. But, that peters out quickly because they're not good books. And so America continues to be illiterate. And the writers who are to blame for it keep bitching about it. So I left. Yes, how do you like France? And are you tied into the literary community there at all? Or?
Not yet. I've had some immigration difficulties that have sort of both been extremely depressing and sort of tied up all my time and energy. But man, I feel like I'm doing some sort of infomercial for Substack right now. But I felt so much better since I picked myself up and started posting a chapter a day on Substack.
Wow.
Even though like it's been such an immense, like I feel like I've gone to the psychiatrist and gotten a perfect drug.
Well, let's do the complete commercial. What's the address if somebody wants to sign up? If Pat uses this bit in is it annsterzinger.substack.com or something else or?
You can find me there. I have an account under my name, Ann Sterzinger, and then I have two different publications. There's the Ann Sterzinger publication, which is basically all of my Medium articles that I imported into Substack. I wrote on Medium for a while, But I had a couple of articles go viral, which was
Wow.
really exciting. But then they throttled me because I got so excited that I was like, okay, I'm going to make a whole separate publication on here. I'm going to have people write for it, and I'm going to put my books on here, and blah, 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 blah. And I made the mistake of naming the publication "You're All Pussies." And after that, they would not distribute my articles. Like, I would post them on Facebook, my Facebook friends would read them, and then they stopped dead. And I was like, well, you people, I was just narrowly escaped death. Like, I had somebody break into my house, attack me from behind, threaten to murder me, rape me. Then I moved to California where I caught typhus, and I was, oh wow, that's another story. I was hallucinating so bad.
Jeez.
When I had typhus. And after that, I came out of all that, and I was still alive, and all these people around me are like, whine, citing my publication, "You're All Pussies," because that's what I told at the time.
It does seem that the culture's become kind of conservative, even though they think they aren't, as far as like the wildness of the 80s, 90s zine scene compared with today is pretty amazing.
Oh, they are so conservative, and they call themselves leftists. It's such a just giant laugh. Like, when they're Che Guevara shirts telling people what naughty words they can't use. Unbelievable.
Yes. It's not Abby Hoffman anymore, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't even know what the word leftist is supposed to mean anymore. Just basically normie. Normie, but violent. Like a normie who will punch you in the nose for saying fuck too many times.
Yes. Yeah, it's. I think there's quite a few people who probably would have identified as liberals a few years ago that now nothing's changed in those people's lives, but all of a sudden, like, they're considered conservatives now, you know, because it's really bizarre.
Yeah, they all consider me a conservative because they've never read anything I've written. They just see some of the publications I've written for. Well, after I turned 30, none of the leftist publications for a while would let anyone my age write.
Wow.
So what was I supposed to do? So I went to some right-wing publications who were much more friendly and kind.
Wow.
Even though I didn't agree with them, but I don't really agree with the leftists either. But the leftists wanted me to, walk in lockstep, which real writers don't do.
Right.
The conservatives were just like, just write down that part of your opinions that our readers might like, and, you're good at what you do, so we'll let you do it.
Well, that's good. So
and then people see what I've written for, and they're like, oh, you're a right-winger. I'm like, no, I'm more liberal than you are.
Right. There's this odd in-between, for sure, many of us are in. Anybody who's kind of individual.
You're a communist authoritarian. That is not a liberal, my friend.
Maoism. Something. So what do you think? Is there a legacy for the ULA or of the ULA? Or is it just people who kind of had fun time and experienced the zine scene? Or what do you think?
Wait, what are you asking?
I guess the legacy of the ULA, if there even is one. If so, what is it?
Well, like I said, I'm kind of coming full circle. I started out in zines. Then I got a job at a real newspaper where I learned that, you really do need to murder your word babies. There are thousands of different ways to skin any cat. Not that I would actually skin a cat, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Like, you can rewrite the same sentence any thousands of ways. Your first thought isn't sacred. And I learned a lot of technical stuff that I would never have learned on my own. But, thanks to the ULA and the zine scene and all that, I was able to keep some of my, childlike enthusiasm or childish. I guess it depends on whether you have a taste for me or not. My enthusiasm for, saying what's on my mind instead of saying what might get me clicks or whatever. And so, you put the two together, and I'd say you could credit some of what I'm doing now to the ULA's influence. Sure, you can make that argument. Why not?
Sure, sounds good. So, well, I think that's. Is there anything else you want to add for Pat, or if he ends up doing the ULA documentary, or any other thoughts, any other stories from that era you want to share, or anything along those lines?
I would like to say hi to everyone. Doug Bassett, I think, still has my portrait that Shimon and Lindemann did of me, and I lost all of my copies.
Oh wow!
When I got attacked. So, oh wait, no, he might have already sent it to me, and then I lost all my copies when I got attacked because I had to flee Chicago because the cops there are just a fucking nightmare.
That sounds horrible. Are you
Like, they
still
care
in
more
touch
about
with
criminals
Doug
than
Bassett?
the
Because
people
I wasn't.
whose lives criminals ruin, but that's a whole other conversation.
Doug Bassett was one of the other founding members. He was. You were in the Slush Pile anthology. I was never able to track him down, or he never responded anyway. Are you still in touch with him? What's he up to?
I haven't heard from him for years.
Oh, okay.
He just kind of disappeared. But yeah, you know what? I'll probably think of something later. But for now, I gotta find Chris. I'm a little bit lost. I gotta turn on Google Maps.
Yeah, no worries.
Think about the internet.
I'll let you know when this gets posted. He usually puts them up on YouTube, and then he's working on the documentary. Thank you so much for doing this. This was a lot of fun because just the very energetic, the movement through the city compared to
I
someone
had fun.
just kind of sitting in their bedroom or their home office. This has been great, and I'll check out try to track down the Substack for sure.
Please do. I will send you a link so you can send it to whoever might possibly be interested. Because, like I said, I'm pretty proud of what I'm doing there.
Yeah, it sounds cool. I dig it. So, well, I'll let you go. Thanks again for it. And if you ever need anything, just give a yell, and I'll let you know when this interview gets posted.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Good night, Ann, or how do they say in France? Au revoir or something?
Au revoir.
Au revoir. There we go. Merci.
Right, stay in touch.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci à vous aussi.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Stay in touch. Maybe.